Are you ready to get provoked? You're listening to Can I Live, a show created to excite, ignite, and expose. Let's tune in with your host, R.W. Jones. Greetings. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Can I Live podcast. We are so happy to have you here today. Thank you for tuning in. And this is Mission Impossible, so it's about the Section 3 Ghost Protocols, and it wouldn't be a Ghost Protocol if we didn't have the Ghost Protocol Mission Impossible video.
Morning, Ms. Jones. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, requires you to locate missing contracts that have been withheld from minority low-income unutilized Section 3 business concerns. Entities that receive certain HUD financial assistance, such as public housing authorities, city and state municipalities that receive CDBG funding, and their general contractors are all required to adhere to the Federal Regulations 24 CFR 135. For more than 50 years, these regulations have been grossly and intentionally neglected. Whistleblowers have been silent, and contracts terminated without cause, resulting in incurable damages to business owned and ran by Black and brown individuals. Dismantle the powers that be, bring accountability, restore economic justice to the great people of this nation. In the event, should you or any member of the Can I Live team be caught or killed, the Justice Syndicate will disavow all knowledge of your actions. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
I love that part when it's like, oh my goodness. Okay, so we got to do it because we're talking about the Section 3 Ghost Protocol. But I've heard that 1,000 times, and shout out to James Jones, my husband. He put that together on the fly. We probably need to tighten it up a bit. But he said, your mission, should you choose to accept, you have to go out and find these contracts. Whistleblowers have been silenced. Contractors have been, what did he say? Contracts have been incurable damages. A lot of the resident-owned businesses or Section 3 businesses or minority-owned businesses have been just railroaded beyond belief. And at the end of the day, what can I say? For God I live, for God I die. This is my cause. This is my banner. This is what has been bestowed upon me in this hour, in this season. And so we're really excited about today's podcast because in our hunt for the missing contracts, guess what, y'all? We found a team of individuals led by an individual. His name is Mr. Ron Carter out of Chicago, Illinois. Now, most of you guys were here last week when you heard one of the injured contractors. I think her name was, I don't know her name, but her business was Mar Fox Construction. She was a minority contractor, resident-owned business around the time about this big JOC program for Chicago Housing Authority. And we were mentioning that there was who was even doing half of that? Who was paying for supplies? Who was paying for and helping you with bonding and insurance? Who was paying for business licensing? Because that never existed. It doesn't exist to this day. We here at Can I Live, we run the resident-owned business incubator, which you're going to hear from Ron later, that this concept is not even a new concept. This was actually established years ago. And how this team of professionals was able to, direct more than $100 million towards resident-owned businesses, low-income businesses. It's never been done before. So they're not only the pioneers, and I don't want to say Chicago Housing Authority is the pioneer. These individuals, these dedicated souls, worked within this institution and made it happen. And so Mr. Carter is going to join us in just a minute to kind of just tell us what it was and what did they do and why has Section 3 literally become this ghost protocol? Where is it? Who is it? Who got it? How to get it? Because a lot of I was talking to someone today and I think I've been fired up all day because this is what I know. If we can send a man to the moon, surely we could put opportunities in the hands of poor people. That's not rocket science, y'all. Y'all gonna stop with all these grant programs, all these complicated regulations, all these complicated daggone things. It is not simple. It's not difficult. It's simple when your heart is postured towards righteousness to do the right thing. First of all, the fact that we even got to ask and have this stupid rule from the beginning is ridiculous. But the rules exist because there is a heart out there that just wants to see to it that there is a people that have nothing. And this spirit, whoever this nature, this evil one, won't stop until we. It's like, why'd you bring us over here if you just did not even, you didn't foresee that we would be free one day. You didn't see that we would be competitors. You didn't see that we would run it. It's eventually is going to be all ours because that's just what it is. We win in the end. But such adversarial forces exist just to prevent us from accessing. And I say, if you guys have watched the podcast before, shame on you. Shame on you, desolate, heartless, soulless, with no conviction. Shame on you. I don't even know how you sleep at night. I think God does not love you. And I say this, I really say this, because if God loves you, he says, whom I love, I convict, I chastise, I instruct, I chastise. So you're not getting no chastisement. You have no conviction. The Holy Ghost, your spirit man, ain't nobody on the inside of you living on the inside of you saying, don't do that. That's wrong. Or when you do it, there's nothing inside of you to repent, turn around, go the other way and say, that was not right. Let me make that right. You are void. So you are the evil one among us. You will, your days are already over. So we're so happy. I wanted to bring them on simply because as we focus on the new, as we start building the new thing, not saying that it never existed before, but in this day and this time, according to this season, that we will lift up a standard and we will do business in this earth. And there's not one devil in hell that can stop us. Why is my phone ringing? So without further ado, we are going to introduce Mr. Ron Carter. Mr. Carter, what is your title right now? That's him calling. What is your title right now?
I have several titles.
Okay.
I am the owner and developer of Veteran Village LLC Series Venture. So we build housing, affordable housing in Chicago, primarily for veterans and seniors. I am the director of intergovernmental affairs and community engagement for a transitional housing facility. So brothers and sisters coming out of Illinois correctional facilities live at our building, and we transition them back into the community. And I'm chairman of something called the Support Group, which is National Basketball Association players. We have a not-for-profit. There are about 30 guys involved. I used to play for the Lakers, the Pacers, the New Jersey Nets, and we raise money every year. And we're in Chicago public schools. We're in about 16 schools now. We hope to be in every school soon. And we're teaching nonviolence, de-escalation, conflict resolution. So we're teaching kids skills, how to deal with the police, so our babies can grow up and be leaders. So those are probably the three most important titles. I have some others, but
that was a lie. So you are busy in like your fourth
life. Yeah, I'm a little busy.
So tell me, I know that we had made contact with a colleague by the name of Miss Dixon, who also really sang your praises and your whole team. And she said that while she was in Texas, there was nothing like the time in Chicago housing when you guys were instrumental in putting this resident-owned business organization together. And so just tell me, whose idea was it? How did you guys, what was that? Did you have to bring everybody together to start planning? What did that look like to establish the very first and only still prominent Section 3 program to direct more than $100 million towards residents.
So it began, excuse me, with we were in Washington, and Joseph Schuldiner was the Secretary of HUD. I worked for Joe in Los Angeles, and Joe brought me and Ed Moses. Ed was the Assistant Secretary, and the legislation, Section 3, was federally approved by Congress, and then we took over at that time, the second largest housing authority in America, based on revenue, not based on population. The number one housing authority in the country is New York.
New York.
By far. It's not even close. The second largest is Los Angeles. Publicly, we would say, excuse me, the third largest was Chicago. But truthfully, it was San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Really?
Which is not even a state. So that was like the big secret.
Wow.
But we took over. We were federal agents, transferred to Chicago. We took that Section 3 legislation, regulation, and then operational policy. And I literally wrote the policy for the Chicago Housing Authority to implement Section 3. And when I left the Housing Authority in 1990, I got there in 95. I went to the Mayor Daley's office as the Empowerment Zone Director in 98. The protocol for Section 3 implementation was already entrenched. And my colleagues and I had incubated 141 companies when I left. The important thing to know is under Section 3, if there's public funding involved, housing authorities, CDBG, I think I shared with you CSBG, most people don't even know that exists. There's other public federal funding. The housing authority, the school board, the city can make these contracts available to resident-owned businesses. The tipping point is that resident business has to be 51% resident-owned. So one of the things we did, which we thought was pretty clever, is when we looked at a resident entrepreneur, we created ROBO, the Resident-Owned Business Organization. And we began classes teaching residents how to start their own companies. We, as a housing authority, actually paid their incorporation fees. We paid their fees. We incorporated them. We got their a C Corp, S Corp, an LLC, an LLP, whatever it was, we paid the fees. And then we found them a private sector partner. So if we were doing laundromats, we went to the largest, CoinMac was the name of the company. We went to the largest laundromat operator in the city, county, state. We made them take a minority position. Well, I shouldn't say made. We encouraged them to take a minority position in a resident-owned company. That justified the housing authority being able to give them a contract for going out to public bid under Section 3.
Now, let me pause right there, because what's important to know is where some might say, well, that's like a pass-through company. It really isn't, because the regulation said at least 51% of the
Correct.
company had to be owned by residents. So it's like y'all made the rules,
Right.
but residents wouldn't necessarily all have the capacity, the bonding, the insurance, and all the other requirements that come with fulfilling a job of any significant magnitude. So that private partnership seemed to be ideal.
So if you look at the HUD regulations, the key words are the alternative procurement process.
So is that like sole sourcing? Oh no, it's alternative procurement policy.
Two different things.
Okay.
So the alternative procurement process under Section 3 says that there has to be at least 3 resident-owned businesses that qualify that can compete for the contract. So we went about the business of creating resident-owned businesses because the more businesses we could create, the more we could use the alternative procurement process.
Wow. Now let me just.
I'm gonna send you a bill. I'm gonna send you a bill.
Yeah, no. Listen. Yeah, but let me just say this: you guys had a heart to make it happen. You had
Correct.
an intention. You had a will.
Correct.
You had a wherewithal. You
Yes.
had the intellect, the capacity to make this happen. I promise you, nowhere in the United States is one housing authority, let alone one municipality, let alone one recipient of any HUD funding, doing anything like this. And we're coming close with paying for the S Corp licensing, the fees, and we teach them. We have not partnered. We're partnering them now, but not to do business.
Way to the extent that we did it, yeah.
Right, with the housing authority, because housing authorities don't possess the political will to do anything of this nature.
Okay, so let me push back on that, because housing authorities' political will is normally dictated by the mayor, because the mayor appoints the board of the housing authority. So it starts with the mayor. So we were fortunate that Mayor Richard Daley Jr., the son, when we took over the housing authority as HUD. So housing authorities, and this is really important, housing authorities are municipalities inside of a municipality.
Right.
So the city of Los Angeles, the city of Chicago, New York, DC, there is a mayor who appoints the board of the housing authority, but it has a separate tax ID number. So the money coming to your housing authority is coming directly from HUD or Health and Human Services or wherever. So,
yeah.
But the mayor determines who sits on that board and how long they sit on that board and how much money they make. We had a perfect storm. Mayor Daley took over the school board. We took over the housing authority on a Friday. The mayor took over the school board on a Monday. 2 biggest budgets, public budgets in the city of Chicago. We were all on the same page. And Mayor Daley was magnificent. I'm so proud. I ended up working for him. He was so generous and so understanding. And building these resident businesses was important to the mayor. So, as we've talked about before, if you got a mayor on board and they got a housing authority in lockstep with the mayor, that's the beginning. It's not the end. Now we go to CDBG, we go to CSBG, we go to home. There's other federal funding that fall under Section 3 that the mayor can make all these city agencies comply to. And then, but that's the money flow. That's the resources. Now you got to incubate the businesses. That was difficult. We know hundreds of Black-owned, minority-owned, public housing-owned, resident-owned companies, but they have to have a partner with capacity, the bond and insure, and they have to be educated to operate a business that makes $5 million a year. It's not easy.
No, I know. It's not easy. It's not easy. Now, let me ask you this. 141 companies, right? Because we had one of those companies on last week. one of those companies, Marfon's Construction, she talked about specifically how once you said you had the perfect storm, you had the mayor on board, Mayor Daley, that's his name. He needed an award.
Richard Daley.
Mr. Richard Daley, shout out to Mr. Richard Daley for even just being in agreement with something of this magnitude because it's never been done before. So the mayor,
it actually happened before we did it, but you know, he was mayor, but we did it and he really didn't know about it. But once he found out about it, he moved me from the housing authority over to his office.
Really?
So he was on board.
Okay. So the mayor should be on board because the mayor, the public housing's political will, it really is dictated by the city government,
by the mayor.
Right. Okay. So that's good to know. So 141 companies, over $100 million. What was it like in that time? Now this was the 90s, correct?
95 to 2000.
95 to 2000.
We came to Chicago May 30th, 1995. I'll never forget that day. Changed my life.
I'm sure. What was it like for the business? Like, did you have, when you started promoting this, was it like pulling teeth trying to get residents to come in with their business?
Well, when we first introduced the concept, it was called ROBO, Resident Owned Business Organization. And we wanted to teach public housing residents to be entrepreneurs. When we first promoted it, our first class was, I want to say, and it's been a while, but I'm pretty close. It's probably like 12 people signed up. 9 of the 12 were senior citizens.
Wow.
So Ms. Dixon was running senior housing, and it was her people that signed up. They were retired, but they saw the vision, and they were very successful. And then the next class was 45 people, and then the next class was 100 people. And before we knew it, we were overwhelmed with people who thought that this was a great idea.
Now, what were some of those businesses, like just examples?
The most prolific were landscaping, janitorial, because every public housing development needs landscaping, and every public housing development needs janitorial, elevator maintenance. Trying to think of board up, because we were trying to tear down a lot of these dilapidated public housing. So the Muhammad Ali, the champ, brother Dennis Muhammad, was tied to champ Muhammad Ali, and we boarded up most of the buildings that we were going to tear down through that company. That they employed a lot of people. Security, unguarded security. So people who lived in the complex secured the complex. People who lived in the complex did the landscaping. They did the janitorial. So now when a child throws trash in the yard, his uncle that lived on the 7th floor, pick that up. So it became a resident-owned initiative, a resident management corporation. We had several of those. Really? So the property was being managed by residents.
Wow.
So we replicated this model in Gary, Indiana, in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I became the city manager in Benton Harbor. We replicated it throughout the city once I went to work for the mayor in senior housing. So this isn't something we think we can do. This is something we have done.
Right.
And we have the data to prove it. And all the regulations and the access, they're still on the books. What's not on the books is the political wherewithal. We need a mayor and a housing authority and a school director willing to do this. And the piece that we talked about earlier is the bonding and insurance. That's the biggest hurdle. So if I got a contract, I'm making this up. This is anecdotal. I'm making it up. But if I got a contract for a $5 million landscaping contract and the company bidding can't bond and insure at that level, then that's how you keep minority people out of the contract. If I got a CEO like Paul Vallis, who ran the Chicago Public Schools, or Mayor Daley, or Joe Schuldiner, the public entities can bond the minority contractors at that level.
Really?
In the contract. Yeah, we buried it in the contracts. So they didn't have to bond because we were bonding it as an agency.
Wow.
Whatever the bonding cost was, either the school board, the housing authority, or the city, we paid it.
Jeez.
We can do that right now in every city in America.
I am like blown away. And that was, and everybody was down with it. And that was then. I mean, I can't say everybody was down with it because eventually there was some opposition. There was some people who was it when Mr. Richard Daley, the mayor, did he lose an election? Did he lose somebody?
No, that's not how it happened. And there was opposition. And I don't know your audience, but I'm going to be honest, okay?
Oh yeah, this is with that.
Yeah, I don't know your audience, but I'm just going to tell you what actually happened. So when the mayor moved me over to City Hall to become the empowerment zone director, he put another man in, black man, to take over at the housing authority. And in traditional Chicago politics, this man thought that all of these resident-owned businesses and all the things that we're doing, the mayor didn't want that. And I know the Mayor Daley, that was not his thinking. In 7 months, this black man disrupted everything we had built. And most of the businesses went away, most of their contracts went away. And then eventually, 7 months later, the mayor came to me, what's going on? I explained it to him and he fired the guy. But it put the housing authority back 5-10 years.
I'm sure.
Because it took us a long time to build that. Now, the gentleman who did that, he's no longer with us, and I never want to speak inappropriately for someone who has passed, but he set us back a decade. So, we've been slowly building it back here in Chicago, but this is something we can build nationally.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.